you guys get a copy of the investigation report?
I was just gonna, as far as I know, no. That would be,
All right, it's 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and begin this village council meeting with the roll call, please.
Certainly. Wales?
Here.
Bishop?
Here.
Dunham? Here. Larson?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Needy?
yes, here.
White?
Okay, we all stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everybody for coming tonight. I'm seeking a motion to approve the regular agenda.
So moved.
I have something to add. Item K, consider release of an investigation report to council. And L, discuss second opinion about conflict of interest. Does that fit with your motions?
And I got one to add.
Well, we're adding stuff.
Yeah.
I'm an L.
It's M or L?
I'm at L next.
I took L already.
Okay, it's gonna be a special event, permit app for the Oktoberfest, for Maple Street closure on the 1st of October from 12 to 4 p.m. for the car and truck show.
Who wrote the closing here?
Who wrote the close?
Maple Street.
Oh, me.
12 to 4. Everybody has this one? Okay. Is that the first one we'll be talking about? Any other changes to the agenda?
And that will still stick with my
Will you take the motion
I will take
as
the
adjusted? We're looking for a second for that, as amended.
Second.
Diana did, thank you. All those in favor? Say yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeking approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Motion and support. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? We have room for public comment here. Will there be any public comment this evening? Thank you for coming. Finance?
We met today at 5:00 and we discussed our current invoices, payroll reconciliations, monthly payroll, journal entries, and bank reconciliations. And I make a motion that we pay the bills in the amount of $95,325.45.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call please, when you're ready.
Sorry,
There's
I'm
no
sorry.
discussion.
Who was the second, please?
Larson.
Okay, who was- thank you. Take a roll call vote. Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes,
Needham,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Wales.
Yes.
Motion carries.
we also discussed with the treasurer / accountant, request for increase in increase in wage and hours, and we make no recommendation. And then the second one was review proposal from Beckett and Rader for master plan assistance. And we are recommending that the village has the assistant sign the paperwork and we pay the amount of $39,250. And he also has an agreement that all other parties are going to pay us back. So if you wanna,
You wanna do it now or? What did you do?
Let's do this.
Since it's on-
So to explain what we're doing is Beckett and Rader gave us a proposal to do the master plans for the village master plan, our Parks and Rec master plan, the DDA plan, the county library plan, and the county Parks and Rec plan. Beckett and Rader wanted to contract with the village, so they didn't have separate contracts with each entity. So we typed up an additional contract, which is basically the Beckett and Rader contract with an agreement on the bottom by the heads of each of those boards, all of which have signed that they agreed to pay their portion to the village, and we will pay the full. Did I explain that in a way that made sense?
And this would be the second time that all these entities have worked on a master plan together through Beckett and Rader, so.
And just to be, we did go to the township as well.
We're doing a lot of talking to it.
I'm
There's a
sorry.
second on that. motion.
You're
I'll
right.
second.
Thank you.
I'll
Can
second.
you get a motion? Thank you. Go ahead. Carry on.
We did talk to the township, that's the only one not included in this process, but they just finished theirs last December, I believe it was. But they are very interested next cycle in getting in the rotation with us. So they will, and according to Cash and Gaynell, this was a first of its kind when we did it last time.
It is.
And it's very unique and it gets us a lot of bonus attention when it comes grant time.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of extra points for the collaboration.
In addition to that is also, again, doing everything all at the same time to make sure that nobody's repeating anything. We're all working towards the same goals.
Rebuilding that bridge from
Yeah,
places
exactly.
where we might not have had a stronger relationship before.
And getting more inputs, it's all that same thing, it's just, again, do we need more discussion?
Is there an updated copy that has Diana's signature on it?
Yes.
On behalf of the library?
Yes.
Thank
Did you make copies of this or do
This is my packet from like Thursday.
you want a copy of it with?
No,
Okay,
I just
you just wanna
wanted
make sure we
to
had
make
it?
I
Yes,
was
we
the
do.
library president, I just signed, yes.
Wanted to make sure the library pays.
Yeah, thank you.
I will welcome the roll call whenever you're ready. Ann.
Certainly. Dunham,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
yes,
Needham,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Wales.
Yes,
Motion carries.
that would be it.
thank you so much. Housing Development and Blight Renewal Committee,
Well, we met and it's basically the same thing. We went over our
Can I
plans.
interrupt? Did we skip finance committee?
We
We
just
just
did that.
finished it.
Did you have more
This one, I'm sorry.
with the
This
selling?
Dr.
agreement?
Sona and
Oh, I
Oh,
think
that
that was the
was-
last
that
one.
was-
Oh, the special one.
Yeah.
Yep, we did skip one. Thank you, Diana.
Actually, it's two.
Two, didn't we?
Before,
Property to the county and the property to the Dr.
Yep.
Sona.
That's right.
Do you have that?
thank you.
You know why?
I
It's
don't
right in
know.
front of me, it's in my packet.
Does she need this?
Yeah, let me see it.
Here, you
Oh, yeah. Diane, here's back. Okay, we did have more.
Please,
Sorry.
go ahead, before we move
Okay,
on.
we met on the 26th at 5 p.m. And we reviewed a purchase offer for village property on Birch Street. Our recommendation to the village council is to recommend accepting offer from Dr. Sonnen in the amount of $15,000.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second first.
Second from Anita. Any discussion?
What's the property location?
The property on the corner of Birch and Arbor. So if you're, you know where the sheriff's department parks for the jail,
Where they do the parking there?
the one to the north of that, or, yeah, north, right on the corner.
Any more discussion? Or a roll call on that, please?
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Needham,
Yes,
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes,
Dunham,
Yes.
Wales.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, and the second item that day was review purchase offer for village property near water tower. And we make a recommendation to the village council to recommend accepting offer from Kalkaska County in the amount of $15,000.
Do you have a second for that?
second.
so say again what it is at the water tower?
Go ahead, discuss.
It would be the back portion of the water tower property, so it's actually pretty much the cleared portion between the woods and the demolition derby.
Where the normal.
Where the pits are?
For the derby.
Okay,
We actually own the property where the pits are. This would transfer that property to them and solve some pretty big problems that they've been dealing with for years.
okay.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Miller,
Yes.
Needham,
Yes,
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes,
Dunham,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Wales.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And that would be all we have.
Sure.
Sure.
Ah, back to housing.
I didn't see anything else.
Go ahead, Sam.
All right, housing development met, and discussed our pathway to our housing master plan. And looking at incentives for helping get developers here. We do have a meeting coming up on the
Thank you.
17th, thank you.
19.
19th.
Saturday.
19, thank you. Where we will be discussing tax incentives and other incentives that we can use to help bring developers in and come up with a further plan as we march towards our housing action plan.
Great. Add something quick? Yes. We're also going to be talking with a gentleman from Habitat about possibly using the land bank, which I honestly can't explain because I don't truly understand it, but we'll understand it a lot better next Monday, I think. Apparently that's beneficial to us and to the developer.
Nothing further to report.
Personnel committee?
Okay, we've got a couple things we're gonna talk about tonight. In fact, one of them I'm gonna bring up from it, Elizabeth added onto our list. We were asked to look into this contract and the resolution of it, the recommendations that the attorney made. We were very uncomfortable with this, mostly because the board has already passed this as it is. And number two, we think the board needs to be involved in some of the decisions that are made. But in the meantime, we found out we got a little bit more homework that we need to do to make sure the policies and the handbook and stuff are the way they should be concerning a couple of these matters. One of the matters we think is gonna be handled differently by the board. We'll see if it does, then it'll be taken care of. And so at this point, I'm gonna ask, she has asked that the board be able to receive, I think the board and Aaron, because it's Aaron's contract, receive a copy of the, and I don't know if that's your concern or not, if Aaron gets one, if it's a
No,
board decision.
no, I mean, like, the board doesn't have it yet, the investigation report.
And we're asking you to be involved in it, and you didn't have it. We didn't have it. I had it, she didn't have it, and Bobby didn't have it
May I
until
interject?
the day of.
Before we make that document public, the reason I sent it to personnel is because you can very easily define what's going on in that document. And since it was directed at a single person, I think it'd be appropriate to ask that person if we'd like to go into closed sessions to discuss it further.
I'm just coming to that.
Can we just do it now, please?
Thank you. And so that's what we wanna do. We
Do
wanna
we-
need to see if we
And that
can
will
go to
take care also of your
closed section
addition.
and discuss whether to hand this out. Aaron?
I would request that, please.
Do we want to wait until further down the agenda? Because I know there are people here, and if we go into closed session, they might be waiting for something on our agenda that we're discussing.
Well, then if we stop this discussion and
Well,
we
that's what she's
address it
saying.
at the end, where you put it,
Yeah,
would you
okay.
like to do that instead?
I was just
Until the end.
Is
suggesting
there any
it.
other things that the personnel committee considered?
No, the other thing we talked about, we had an appeal from an employee, but we think that's been handled.
And really, that's not the place for an appeal for an employee, as we know, according to the contract.
Yeah.
But
He
at
had
the
that choice to
time,
go to,
at the time, I did not know where to send that, so I sent it to personnel.
well, we're finding
Now we
out that
know
the
that-
personnel manual and stuff says they have the choice of going to,
So there's a conflict. So it's been to both places, so just so we know for the future, that's another thing that's gonna have to come up.
Yep.
But for now.
and we know there's more to deal with there. We
Yeah.
know that.
You said that there's a conflict in what says what, as far as personnel handling those? Talking about
Were you
the-
not part of that discussion in the personnel meeting, that there's conflicts in the personnel meeting, the personnel handbook against the contract? There's options in the handbook, I believe, that aren't options in the contract. I believe that's what she's alluding to. I'm not sure, I wasn't there.
Are we talking about his contract?
No.
Yes.
That's not what
He
I'm
has.
talking about.
Okay.
We're talking about the employee issue that we discussed last week. And what I was hearing you guys saying is that,
There was a conflict.
The appeal to the right now.
Right,
That one.
that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
is that appeal, we don't know where that's going, right? Did I correct it in the correct place?
personnel made a plan, I'm sorry, Diana, I'm taking over.
We had made a plan and presented it, but we've since heard a couple things on it. We're still gonna discuss this. We got a meeting planned for 2 weeks. And we're gonna still discuss this and so, but both the individual department head and the employee are comfortable where they're at right this moment.
That's fine.
So,
What I thought I heard you saying was that it shouldn't have gone to personnel in the first place, because we have
I
a
did not
conflict
know.
and,
Because
Contract,
the
okay.
contract says that all issues are held here. And that's not
But
what
the
the manual
manual,
says. It says that there is an option to bring it to council.
and that was
So
the
that needs to be
manual.
clarified and
I
a
see.
new rule needs to be put in place that is the
Okay.
same on both sides.
That's why we're doing another meeting. We know we got some homework.
I concur with that.
I understand that, thank you.
So then we're done with personnel and we'll just move on. Police report?
Anything you wanna talk about? Police department wise, everything's been smooth. We're still waiting on a response from Consumers Energy on the K-9 grant. If we receive that, it would be enough to purchase the K-9 and train the officer, so it would cover it 100%. Just waiting on that response. Officer Clark submitted that. He seemed to think he was pretty solid for what Consumers was telling him, but we're just waiting to see. I don't know if you've noticed, but we do have, the take-home cars are not a thing. They're in the garage. Fuel budget was expensive with the fuel prices, and it just was costing us more than, and the mileage than the benefit, so they are here. Other than that, unless there's specific questions.
Nothing?
Okay.
Move into your own report.
So North Walnut Street project, they are finishing up on the intersection they are at. They anticipate starting at the third intersection on Thursday. Everything's progressing at, time-wise as they expected. They didn't expect to have the multiple spots going at the same time, but it's actually worked out really well, and it probably eliminated the traffic off North Walnut Street.
It's been quiet except for that dozer running up and down.
filter media project is actually starting this week. They're doing their planning. The actual media material does not come until Friday, but that will be in the process. You're not gonna see any changes, to your water. They're gonna do one of the chambers. They're gonna give it a while to work and make sure everything's working properly before they address the second chamber. So they're being very conservative about it. I emailed the crack sealing company that's working on the airport today to try to get a timeline. I have not gotten that yet, but that should be any time now. Anybody that's been to Chalker Park should have noticed that we have all brand new wood chips through the entire playground. It looks tremendously better. And I went to the Kalkaska Township meeting last week, and that went very well. I felt like I was very welcome and like there's a line of communication open there now. I've also followed up with a couple of the township board members, and just, we have an open line of communication now, so hopefully we're repairing that as well.
You did the same thing with township too, yeah?
I did the township, and I plan to go to the county meeting, but theirs hasn't come up yet. If they could have one sooner, I could get there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
A few things in mind. I want to look ahead. The Railroad Square property transfer has not occurred. So we're not taking control of that as of yet, it appears. And the property switch that we had arranged, those properties have gone forward in different directions and found other funding. So I am probably going to spur the DDA to sell us that property. So the next year's budget, I think we probably should plan ahead for that. And whatever that fair asking price is, I would also expect that the council would consider that they bought us a very nice zero turn last year out of the goodness of their heart. And they have also depleted a lot of their funds with these projects that they have going. And by doing so, if we were able to purchase that property out from underneath them, we would then be able to put some money back in their coffers to support some of these housing projects and grants that we're now seeking. I was made aware that the funds that I have been saying that we have are great for us, but not over there. So in order to get those funds over there, where they're actually doing all of the work for us, and maybe doing some ancillary work, it would be nice if we backed up their funds. So just so you all know, that's probably coming down the road to you, okay? Other than that, I don't have anything else to say. We don't have any unfinished business, and of course, your Ken, please.
On that Railroad Square issue, we've looked at making our parks actual parks. That is a holdup right now on Railroad Square. We can't because we don't own it.
And as one motion, we can make all the parks, but not until they're all.
So we're waiting, we're gonna do them all at the same time rather than pay an attorney to write it up 2 different times.
And then the grand ceremony is like, because it should be.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
just so you know where we're at.
Unfinished business, consider adoption of ordinance. Let's not do that. Well, we kind of have to. I would like to consider, Angie, I need to consult you. I would like to consider under new business first, before we move forward with old business. May I do that? To address that issue, so that we might participate or not participate in old business. Do you have an answer for that? May we move ahead?
You want to move ahead with it?
I would, under new business, I was going to skip right to L. But I see that I probably should address that prior to 7A.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Or we can just proceed and talk about it later.
I guess my question, do you have to follow the agenda in order? I guess that's what it comes down
That's
to.
what I don't know.
And I think I didn't know if she,
Anything like that.
I make a motion that we skip to the part that we need to get to in order to make all this make sense.
Wow, that's a great motion. Can I have a second for that?
Sure.
All in favor of that motion?
Alright,
Okay,
Yeah, that sounds great.
did you get that one, Angie?
Alright.
I've sat a lot of meetings and I think you don't have to necessarily follow it as it
I
is.
didn't think so.
As
I
long
just
as the
didn't
group
want to do
rules.
something.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
As long as nobody
Okay,
disagrees.
then let's just hold off on addressing 7 and go down to new business, L. The discussion of the conflict of interest. Do we have those documents forward?
Is this something that you can or want to go in closed session for?
No.
Okay.
There's no reason for this, there's nothing, it's just a question.
That probably didn't go into the packets, did it?
No.
So you guys probably don't have that in front of you? Would you like me to-
Bob has a copy.
Would you like me to make a copy for everybody?
You have a copy.
Yeah, could you, please?
Do you have that in front of
Yeah,
you,
that
Don?
one.
I borrow that? I'll get it back.
It's-
Make copies of it?
It's written
Is
all
there-
over.
Oh, you got, it. I'll just print it out.
We don't need to make a motion to talk about this. Right? No.
No,
It's on the agenda.
This was never a confidential document.
For the old meeting,
This is all together.
when we had a meeting, we didn't have to go through all
It
this
is all
crap.
together, yes.
That's why.
It could be considered, it could be, or the attorney, it could be,
Right, but with the tie through to the other thing, it's not going to happen in this session. I'm talking about one.
I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see.
All of those came through in the same way. We're gonna divide it up into different areas.
Correct.
So
It's, yeah, but in
we're
one
only
document.
talking about the conflict of interest.
Got
Is this the party corner?
Mhm.
We promised to behave.
Sorry.
It won't print.
Sure.
Sorry.
My printer always says that to me.
I tried to both
It's
print.
like,
Only when you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Has everybody read it?
Yes.
Everybody go.
I wanted to know if everyone read it.
So I have the tiny copy of them.
Yeah, you
I
should.
didn't get out of
But it goes like that, so
Yeah, but still. Even my glasses.
my near tiny vision still works very well, so the far distance, that doesn't work well. Anyone reach out to you about that tree, Mr. Larson?
What's that?
Anyone reach out to you about that tree yet? Scott, nothing at all, huh?
You got a tree you want to take out?
6 foot.
It's pretty tall.
Does anybody else have a hard copy? For some reason, it won't print from Angie's either. I don't know, it's, maybe
We
it's.
can make copies. Bob, can I make copies of this one? There should be 2 more pages.
You wanna start with Elizabeth? And work back. Actually, you just get Elizabeth and Bobby. You know it.
On the order exchange.
We'll give everybody a chance to look that over.
Well, I find the lawyer's opinion to be quite clear on page 3 as far as, the president and pro tem voting on, ordinances related to marijuana, that they should not.
I concur.
I agree.
I believe that it is the broadest interpretation of both statutes, and it does still leave room for personal decisions. But my personal decision will be to go with the broader interpretation and abstain from any voting. Knowing this now, I wish I had known this when I was employed at the hospital, because there were many votes that I was encouraged to vote on for the hospital, without this knowledge, and did so. Because I was told that my little paycheck did not equate anything. So
I would
apparently,
abstain.
in the broadest interpretation, it does. So I will abstain here for it.
As will I.
Do we need more discussion?
I actually, was a bit confused by one of the bottom paragraphs on page 2. I don't know if it's something that
Do we need
lawyer,
clarity on that for this discussion or for yourself?
for this discussion,
Go ahead.
where it talks about a public officer shall not participate in regulation or supervision relating to a business entity in which the public officer has a financial vested interest. It almost sounds like the lawyer here is saying that public officers should not be employed
No,
in industries that
you
are
can't be a
regulated.
supervisor or a manager
Correct.
or on a license.
One statute clearly states you can't own
Yeah.
more than 10% or be a manager and hold any office that's elected. The other one says that you can't vote if you work for them at all. And that's the one that we're going on. You can hold an elected official in non-managerial, believe me, I know. Specifically why I didn't take a management job.
And
I know the statute in and out.
I'm not a manager or anything, and my HR is sitting right over there and can tell you that.
Specifically why I'm the least paid employee where I work by $2.
Well, in that paragraph.
In that paragraph, it
It's,
clearly states.
yeah,
And what is that statute regarding? Is it regarding office?
it is.
And what does the statute say? I'm not getting the picture.
I think
In this
that's,
paragraph, it says that,
Is this the one we're talking about?
yes, I'm talking about the second paragraph from the bottom on page 2, where it says that, I mean, it clearly says that they should not vote on issues in which they have a financial interest. And then in the second half of that paragraph, it
You're not
says,
reading the statute, dear. I'm sorry to interrupt. But the statute that they're talking about is the marijuana statute. That says that you can't own 10% or have management. Those aren't the same things that we're looking at. One is the statute of Michigan law, and the other one is GLBA,
and
under my understanding.
this one that says MCL dot, 15, that is a, which one? Where is that statute?
Marijuana.
Marijuana. I guess that, not being a lawyer, I still am not sure.
What are you getting at?
What it sounds like is that a public officer that is
No,
Fine.
that's not what it
That
says.
is-
Read it.
I am reading it.
A public officer that has a financial
Interest.
of 10% or greater.
Is that what they cut out in the dots?
I don't know.
Then
But that's
where,
what it
Has
reads.
a financial or
If
personal.
you read the whole
interest.
statute,
We don't have a financial or personal interest in the company. We just work for them, just like you work for somebody. It's our jobs. We're abstaining from voting because it's the right thing to do.
and if we did own
Not legal for us to
9.5%,
vote.
that statute also allows for that. Because that's not a controlling share. That's why. 10% could be a
I
controlling.
think if you go back to the first sentence, I see what you're,
I do too.
on that specific sentence, but I think if you go back to the first sentence, that they're allowed, but instead of employees, not managerial employees of licensed, I probably shouldn't be reading this out loud, should I? But if you go back to that first sentence, I think that gives it the clarity, but that's the way that I'm reading it.
I thought that maybe there was a difference that I didn't know between some, an industry that's regulated. I didn't know if that's why the word regulation was.
No, it's that whole paragraph in there is clearly going back to 420.1, which states clearly at the top what their percentages of, the fact if they're an employee or management or ownership or on the license, that refers right back to 420.1.
I think she just tied in two different thoughts in the same paragraph that probably should have been separate thoughts.
Well, thank you for helping me walk through that.
Are we still under discussion phase? Because I kind of have another thought and question.
We are.
Okay, by looking at this, where questions were asked if abstention was a no vote, the attorneys clearly state that abstentions are no vote. So using the law and basic common sense, that would mean that that vote passed because there was only one no vote
Can we
during that
refer to the
vote.
clerk for that answer?
I'm sorry.
So because there was two abstentions, which are not considered no's, they're just not
considered
votes.
Yes or no, they're not.
There no,
Did
there's
that motion
absence of vote.
pass because it was a majority?
That was my original thought, but based on this,
But it still took 4 votes to pass it, correct?
that's always been my understanding. It was 3 yeses, 1 no.
Because it's
Two
still a majority
abstentions,
of
one
the
yes.
elected body.
But
Right,
there was an absence,
right.
and that equates into that, doesn't it?
I always thought so.
It does. I mean, that doesn't say it doesn't.
No, it
Correct.
doesn't.
So we had a quorum for the
So
meeting, so
we
that
did.
vote would have been legal.
And that vote would have been a legal vote then. So I would feel more comfortable if we re-voted on it. If everybody is, it's already on there, so
I would make that motion.
I think we should. Do we have a second for that motion? And Diana Needham seconds that motion.
Are you clear on the motion?
We're taking the vote to reconsider. We're not re-voting. First, we have to pass the motion to reconsider, and then we can vote again.
It's two separate.
On the ordinance itself.
Yep.
Two separate votes.
First one. Do we use roll call for that?
Yes. So we have White and Needham as a motion and second to reconsider.
Reconsider, yes.
Thank you. And yes, we do need a roll call. Needham,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham,
Yes.
Larson,
Well, I guess I'll go yes this time.
Miller,
Abstaining.
White, or excuse me, Wales.
Abstaining.
Abstaining. Motion passes to reconsider the vote.
Seeking a motion to reconsider the vote.
We have to restate the motion.
To redo this.
So yes, so now we need a
Yeah.
motion to take a
I don't
vote to adopt the ordinance 2022-014.
Thank you, ma'am. Seeking that
I'll
motion,
make that motion.
motion and second,
I'll second.
Thank you.
and you will call in agreement.
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
Abstaining.
Needham,
Yes.
Wales.
Abstaining.
Motion carries.
I think we're on A, I believe, under new business.
No, I think we
We
just
just
did
did
A.
that.
Yeah, we just did.
Now we're on B.
Do you wanna go back to 7A that we skipped in order to?
Should
get
be.
to this?
Please.
And I'm not sure what happened to 8 and 9, just,
I don't know either, but
Oh, yeah.
that works now and then we skip it.
English major.
But I kind of like that. That loop too, that was very nice. That actually worked out quite well.
oh,
Yeah.
So we're at 7A. Amendment to section 7.14.6 on micro businesses.
And this is the conversion from micro business to micro business A, not increasing the numbers, but changing the clarification.
It's adding, I believe.
Seeking a motion,
As well.
Ready?
I'll make the motion.
make the motion, second the motion.
She made the motion, I'll second the motion.
Excellent.
But I think that this is the one that
Would
adds.
you like to
To be
explain?
completely clear, can I have Mr. Nestle talk, because he probably knows the ins and outs, because it affects him. I don't know, I don't know if I'll give it to
Do
you.
you mind standing up and talking, Kevin?
I can maybe explain it. very
What
briefly.
is the change from the micro to microwave?
Well, the change from
I know
micro to
the numbers.
microwave, in a nutshell, you're going to run, we have the licensing ability to go up to 150 plants. Most of the time, even with that kind of biomass, such a small building, it's almost an impossibility. Okay, so what we do is we're about half power at that point. So what the state has recommended is the state looks at it and says, okay, well, you can only produce so much biomass, so you're not gonna be able to wholesale your product like one of the bigger machines. So they modified our business license for a mom and pop business operation to see if they can survive against the big corporate giants, which we believe that is still a possibility because you have two schools of thought. You have somebody who wants a craft grown cannabis product versus somebody who wants a regular production product. Okay, so the difference is when you move from a 150 to a 300, it gives us an option, so we have a little bit going.
I don't think they understand, the numbers is what they don't know, that's what we're looking at.
The number, so you can grow up to 150 plants at a micro business grow A, okay? Now, if you were gonna go to a micro business grow B, which was a 300 plant capacity, you could grow up to 300 plants. However, with the property that we have, along with, I believe, with the other property that's available, that's been designated as micro businesses, to be able to generate a 300 plant grow would be almost impossible. The whole factor is the plant numbers is 150 to 300, but the real thing that really makes it a financially viable option for us is that we don't have the liability to have to grow our own product and have to pay the electrical bill because the propensity of the biomass is being grown through these giant machines and it's being put in through the processors. The processors have this huge influx of cannabis and it will continue to be like this. So what happens is you have a market that's being driven down. So with us, if a 300 grow A would be a potential possibility, then it means that we would reduce our liability of growing inside the building and electrical consumption. It gives us an opportunity to buy, purchase indirectly from a processing unit. That means that we can buy and we can compete with all the other big machines and continue to lower our prices and we'll be more competitive because our overhead is lower in a smaller building. So that would make us a very competitive machine. However, we don't see any real advantage to growing more cannabis plants because of the competition and how much is out there right now. And it's going to continue to be like that for years until ultimately there's attrition or that there's more of a better delineation between microbusiness and the grow systems and the processors and the big giant machines. They're going to try and whittle them out through attrition. You're going to see if they can't get some of them to fail, okay, because the overhead is extensive. Okay, but the smaller ones like us, we have the ability to pickle the machinery, shut everything down, and wait and see what happens. We're hoping for a 300 grow A because of the pre-stacking business.
So basically what you have is you have a very small mom and pop type business that can grow a limited number of plants. They can't process it. All they can do is sell the product currently. If we change this, then they can start using some of the selling some of the processed products, which is really where a lot of the demand is. So they're very limited in what they can do. We only have 3, and I'm not sure that, honestly, from my point of view, as a business, I don't know if they can even survive as just a micro business. So I think this would give them a fighting chance to actually.
What we're seeing ultimately is we have a lot of the elderly people, they come in and they request gummies or they request some processed something because one, smoking cannabis is hard on your lungs, it's hard on your system, okay? It's generally not good for you to be able to inhale any kind of smoke. I don't care how you want to cut it. From a nursing background, generally it's not very good for you. So what you do is you have to have a process set up. So the problem is with the processor is if we were to process, because we can't have that capacity under 150. However, MDARD has to come in, and that is the Department of Agriculture. These people are very, very, very strenuous in their investigation of being able to build a building for processing, especially when you have to use very volatile chemicals such as butane, things like that to be able to process your cannabis. And it becomes unbelievably expensive. Can't be done. It's almost unaffordable. So the only real viable option is to get to a 300 grow so we can purchase our products from a processor, and then we have a fighting chance to be able to stay alive. Other than that, once we lose a customer that comes in and wants gummies, we'll never see them again. And we had this discussion before, and you're like, it's just lost business and lost revenue overall for the whole city of Kalkaska, because if we could actually build a small machine and make it work, then ultimately you become a benchmark system for the rest of the state. Like a small machine is maybe better than some of the bigger ones like Lily Green Farm because people are getting more personal. You know, they know they got 2 people behind the counter trying to get it work. So,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is this supposed to be published and is there a way? What is
No,
it?
you though, where did this ordinance come from?
The state passed, the state had the micro license to start with, and that's when we adopted it. The state just adopted this recently. So we're just trying to integrate what the state is now allowing.
So it didn't sound like.
Again,
an
for
alternative.
clarification, we are switching to this classification of microbusiness, not adding any more licenses than what we already allow.
Absolutely correct.
Thank you.
No expansion in numbers,
That makes sense.
numbers of licenses.
Mhm.
A microbusiness class B was mentioned. Is that what our current microbusiness?
No, right now we are strictly a micro business. I didn't know there,
Yeah.
is a B just a bigger version of BA? Which is kind of pointless from what you're saying.
it doesn't, you know,
But if
it's,
the state has also added that one, would we, I'm not saying we have to do it today, but in the future, would we like to also?
If someone
add
came to
that
us
one?
that was big enough that had the room to do it, maybe, but right now it sounds like space is the limiting factor, so I don't know that anybody has the room to be that big.
I guess I don't understand why we wouldn't add it so that it's there.
Sure.
Rather than waiting for someone to look for it.
And I, like I said, I didn't realize, I had read the micro A, I did not know there was a B.
I think when we started this conversation, it was only A.
Maybe that
Because
was
this conversation has gone back
true.
months. at this
Because we
point.
have voted on a micro business A something somewhere, right? In a
This
different
is
ordinance.
the fruition of that original conversation.
Is the B a new addition?
Now, I'm not really sure between the delineation between an A and a B. I know that there's a 300, from a 150 to go up to a 300, but the classification also allows to buy from processed goods. And that is ultimately the key, because really the amount of electricity that it would cost to grow a 300 plant system really still isn't even cost effective. Where it becomes effective is being able to buy processed.
I guess my view, or it's up to you guys, but why not just make it allowable? It doesn't change anything for us. It's,
So it makes sense to me, as we're not adding extra licenses to what we had decided on what micro businesses were going to be. So if we just mirror whatever the state mandates are for the micro businesses and cap the number
we're
at
still
what we
doing
have
what
it,
was intended.
that's exactly what we intended in
As
the
long as
first
we're not
place
adding on.
anyways.
Although I won't participate in the vote, I think I'm an expert in this field, I would say that this law was altered to, just like you said, save that possible idea of that craft store by introducing what are the hottest items on the market. And those are the distillate concentrates, gummies. Those are the things that people want right now because they are finding they're coughing up their lungs. So it means like a good idea. State, it should probably be something we follow here as well. Yeah, that's my discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, as long as we're not adding on to.
8 days after publication. Depends on which newspaper it's published.
The quickest.
Please.
Any discussion?
I was just discussing that if we were to pass it, it will take effect 8 days after publication.
Any more discussion?
Well, is this motion including both of them then? I mean, to whatever the states suggest?
Well, if we just made it the micro B, the micro A would be automatically
Okay,
covered.
okay.
As long as we go with the biggest one,
But
you
do
can
we
always
have a
go
motion for
smaller.
that? Is that what our motion stated?
B covers everything.
My recommendation would be that it be micro B.
That's what it states, right?
No, it's micro A is the only.
It
thing
says
that's
A.
included. Yeah, in
So-
this ordinance.
Who would be making the motion to change that?
I'll make the motion and change to micro being. Actually, I'll make the motion for that our ordinances mirror the state licensing for micro businesses with no increase in the amount of licenses the village allows.
Then we never have to change it.
I like that, that's good.
That keeps the liability up.
We knew we were gonna go back and forth on these ordinances right from the get-go, and this is not the first change we've had to make, but this will take care of not having to change this one again.
Okay, Donna made the original motion for adopting ordinance 2022-15. as
I will make
was.
it as amended.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I didn't mean to step on your toes.
Good idea.
Sorry, second. Initial motion, any seconds, so
Yes,
second.
Damien was the original second.
Bobby will do the second.
The second.
The second.
The second.
Congratulations on your second.
It's nice to see the full moon is still affecting this week now that's
And then
done.
whenever you're ready.
Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
Abstaining.
Needham,
Yes,
White,
Yes.
Wales.
Abstaining.
Motion carries.
New business B, consider adoption of ordinance 2022-014, amendment to chapter 120, licensing marijuana facilities of the village code of ordinances.
That is what we did just following the motion that when we passed the motion to reconsider.
Just making sure.
He's just checking to make sure.
I am, and that it's in work, we go with it all the way. C, consider adoption of resolution 2022-013, amendment to village fee schedule.
I would make that motion for resolution 2013.
Support.
Motion and support. Maybe have a roll call. There's no discussion.
So this is the one that removes all the cannabis inspection fees. And am I correct in understanding this because we removed the inspections in one of the ordinances we just passed?
No.
I thought that the one that we reconsidered had,
That was just the sale, I think.
The sale of
I-
the
Just the sale, right?
was it? It says instead of a quarterly compliance review, it says a random compliance review for each certificate of registration
Yes.
shall be conducted by the village. And then it crosses out the part about the fee schedule.
Yes. Now we're just amending the fee schedule to take it off of there. I didn't understand what you said. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You are correct. Now the fee schedule has something on there that we don't do, so.
We're not removing the inspections, we're just not telling them we're coming for returns.
But we're taking away the fees.
We're taking away the fees.
And I am curious as to why that is on the table.
A lot of it is, our selling point was we were gonna do these inspections, we were gonna charge them, and then they were gonna have all this extra ammunition when they're ready for the state inspection. We're finding that they're not even the same type of inspections. We're also finding that we're telling them that we're coming, so
Everything's in compliance.
everything is in compliance when we get there. Who knows what it is the day after we leave? And we're already, my feeling, having gone through this process, is that we use this as a way to bring in income. And that's not how we should be bringing in income.
If I may speak to this as well. Initially, the inspections were something that I think led the community some comfort, knowing that we were going in there and we were double checking things with new people coming to town. I think we've done that enough. And I do believe too that those initial inspections did help us get up and off with the whole industry and being able to kind of insulate the office and build it up a little bit. So it did have its place, but with the review that we've done in depth of the marijuana ordinances that are current due to the current situations that we dealt with tonight, it also clearly states that we're only allowed to charge at a maximum $5,000 per entity per license. So without further discussion,
I don't think in the beginning too, the inspections were also a little educational.
they were very much so on both sides. I believe that
Justice
at the beginning, that was true.
And we were charging more than $5,000?
We've charged this much, and then we've done this as we went down. As the more industry licenses we had that were able to carry it, the less the inspection fees became important. So we did craft ways of making those smaller up to this point now. So doing away with them would probably be the next step.
But we did feel it was important to at least leave them in there as an option. So if we have a complaint, if we have an issue, we still have inspections available.
We can go in and do an inspection.
That would be paid for.
I'm sorry?
That would be paid for.
No.
No.
This is,
It would be basically complaint
Driven.
based.
the last time that we voted on reducing fees, part of the argument was that, it was to be more reflective of our actual costs of doing the fees. That the original fees were too inflated, and then after we started doing them, we realized that it cost less, so we reduced the fees. That's where I am feeling lost, why we're getting rid of them altogether, because there's still gonna be time.
Did you read the ordinance?
Because we won't be doing that.
Because we'll be doing them randomly.
Right, but did you read the ordinance about charging that I just spoke of?
The one about $5,000. But what are you saying that we've been doing it wrong? before
I'm saying that
we were
in the
charging
beginning,
too
I
much?
believe that there was a reason to charge that because I believe it was a benefit to both them and the village. But now I don't believe that it is.
But what does
And
that have
so
to
I
do with the
feel-
$5,000 limit?
Going forward, I don't think that we can charge anything more than $5,000 because I don't think that they are getting any benefit from us doing it. So therefore, if they're not getting an ancillary benefit beyond their license, then they should only pay $5,000 period, according to statute.
I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Basically, what he's trying to say is the state says we can charge up to $5,000
Per year,
per
per
license,
license,
per license,
per year, or one time?
per license per year.
Per year. Okay.
We're charging $5,000 plus an inspection fee. It doesn't say you can't charge an inspection fee, but it doesn't say you can. So are we within compliance? We're not sure.
And we didn't ask?
We did.
And what did
And the
they
lawyer
say?
said that they could defend it at that point, but that was a couple of years ago.
But it would cost us more to defend it than it would to just.
And I don't want to proceed that way, so there.
But then why didn't we stop? Are there other communities that do it? Were we the only ones who are?
Well, I'm gonna
charging
answer the question you
inspection
wanted
fees?
to ask, because I didn't have any say in it at the time, and I didn't. I think you guys were letting me do it the way you did it.
What, I'm sorry.
You were gonna say, why did we keep it the way it was kept? I'm not sure we should have. But now that I'm in this position, I wanted to bring it to you because I don't feel we should. I know you didn't completely ask the question, but
But the option is still there.
the option
We're
to do the
taking-
inspection?
Yeah.
But
Correct.
not to charge.
And it would be complaint derived. I mean, if someone calls, there's a smell complaint, we think they're doing something improper, I mean, we'll go every day. It doesn't say how many times we can go, so we can still have that connection and that ability to address problems, but not regularly do it and do it to make money off of it.
Is there something where you can fine them in place if there is a complaint that has been found to be valid? Do we have some?
We can't fine them, but we can call the CRA and they will suspend their license. Because if, once they're out of, all we have to do is tell the CRA
If
they're
they're
out
out
of
of
compliance.
compliance.
The CRA has no problem levying fines on people with holding state licenses for
So
very
that's
little
covered.
things.
So it's not like we don't.
No, we have learned from the CRA, they are, if we tell them there's a problem, it's done.
Mike
What?
can attest to that. It does, they're a terrifying entity, make sure that everything is watertight.
This could be wrong, but it feels that we made up these when the industry was booming, and now that it's quieting down, we're removing them.
We lowered them.
Well, we
Yes,
lowered
we
them, what,
lowered
2 years
them.
ago?
What was it? Not even 2 years ago, it was last year, didn't we?
No,
Or the year before?
pre-COVID.
That we lowered them?
They have gone through quite a progression.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And as we learn, we change things.
The
And when we
fees,
know better, we do
the
better.
fees were set
I
up when
think
we
we're doing
started
that right
writing the
now.
ordinances to make sure that we had complete overview of everything that was going on. Because in order to pass this and make it work in the community, we had to have our fingers in everything to know what was going on at all times. We wanted to vet everybody out. They had to have a municipal license before they could get a state license. And we wanted to be doubly sure that they were being compliant, because when we were under moratorium, pre this new law, when we only had 2 places in town, before they made this particular setup possible, we had to worry about, do we have a legitimate caregiver? Do we have a street dealer who just rented a store? And that's why we did inspections. With this, we were able to get on that.
I don't know that we need to defend what we did in the past or discuss
Well,
it
just
at
explaining
length
the
or really give any more fodder to it. I don't believe it should be in place and I can't vote for it, so it's going to be on you.
I think they pay enough in taxes and license fees that they shouldn't have to pay anything. inspection fee. That's just my opinion, I'm not voting on it, but they do. I mean, we get a lot of taxes, we get,
I would also recommend you give some consideration to the fact that from what I'm hearing from the industry and from the state, the industry is starting to struggle. And I'm not sure that those fees wouldn't push people out. And I'm not sure that's definitely not, I almost said I'm not sure, that's not what we want to do. We need the businesses here.
Even struggling businesses still employ people.
Yeah.
And they are our insulator that got us through COVID, so that too. And I think we got about $700,000 from them this year, so being petty is probably not smart. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Certainly. Dunham,
No.
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
abstaining.
Needham,
Yes,
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Wales.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
D, consider adoption of ordinance 2022-016, amendment to sections 35017 municipal civil infraction fines and costs of the village code of ordinances.
motion to adopt ordinance 2022-16.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, will there be discussion?
This has nothing to do with
No.
No, I'll explain quick. Our municipal civil infractions have always been 75, 150, 300, first, second, third offense. When we had it rewritten by the attorney, it became 20, 40, 60?
2050, 75.
Yeah, something like that. 20, 50, 75, which when you think about, so Officer McCormick probably uses it about as much as anybody. When we write these municipal civil infraction tickets, it's a lot of times it's a no insurance type situation that we know that the prosecutor and the court aren't going to address those. They have proven over and over. It's a $75 ticket instead of losing your driver's license, going to jail, hundreds of dollars of fines. It's trying to work with these people that are first offenders and help them get the insurance, but not have to go through the court system. But probably not $20. Go ahead.
So the reason we write MCIs, municipal civil infractions, is no insurance. It's prior of April of 2021. You go to jail for that. But now it's a cite and release. It's still a misdemeanor offense. It's a towable offense. Can't drive on any public roadway with no insurance anyway. So instead of writing them a state citation, which would cost them hundreds of dollars, seeing a judge for it to go on their driving history, points on their license.
Mandatory license suspension.
Exactly. And towing their vehicle, we give them the option of, hey, we'll write you this $75 ticket. It's your first offense. You get insurance on your vehicle. As of right now, it just stays between them and the department, and it doesn't go on their driving history. They don't have to go see a judge. So in reality, we're saving them from court, a judge, the issues with the Secretary of State, losing their license, and several more. So in reality, we're saving each individual hundreds of dollars.
And we're keeping them at work, working, providing for their families.
Yes.
Those things, rather than we take their license, we just double the problem. Now they can't afford insurance and they don't have a driver's license.
Kind of alleviates some help at the court too, doesn't it? Alleviate some.
It takes quite a bit out of the court, and we know, we've talked to the prosecutor. If we arrest them for no insurance and then they get it and they've never had it before, they're gonna dismiss it anyway as long as they got it. So why not help them make the process a lot easier? But I think $20 is just, I don't know how it went so low, and I missed that. I should have thought that when I read it.
Just out of curiosity, what happens after the fourth time?
I don't think they get a fourth. We haven't had somebody get a second yet.
And we've came to agreement, I don't mean to cut in, but we've came to agreement, like, they have 10 days to pay us. If it's the first offense, they have 10 days to pay the $75 ticket. If they don't pay within 10 days, then we submit it up to the prosecutor's office, at which point they'll charge that individual with, if it's a misdemeanor offense at that point.
Because they've had the opportunity to fix it the easy way, and they didn't take it, so they will prosecute them.
Which I would say probably more than half, it doesn't come to that point, because they end up paying for the subdivision.
There's been other communities downstate that have done the same
Oh,
thing,
absolutely.
and it seems to work out wonderfully for them.
You said these were our original numbers.
Original
and
numbers
then
were 75, 150,
got
300,
switched
and
when
then
we
got
changed
switched with
ordinances.
Correct. The last two people that have come in and found out it's only $20, we're very happy.
I'm sure.
Any more discussion?
Well, that's a good point too, it's not a deterrent.
$20.
There's no deterrence to a $20.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's worth your chance.
Maybe it would be something else.
Okay, further, take a roll call vote for its adoption. Larson?
She said you, Bob.
Larson?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Miller?
Oh, yes. I was like.
Needham?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Bishop?
Yes.
Dunham?
Yes.
Wales?
Yes.
Carries.
E, consider approval of addendum to contract with Infrastructure Alternatives Inc. Summary?
You want to address it now, or do you want the motion first?
So moved.
Or,
So the changes, currently, IAI does not have the ability to make purchases for the village. I would like to make them just like a department head, where if they need something for the wastewater treatment plant, they need something for the removal plant, they follow the process, they purchase those items under our purchasing policy. And not have to come to us and have us go with them to buy the item, and it's very inefficient, it's just something.
Is there a
we have to-
specific example of something that happened that would make this easier?
Just the other day, they needed 3 photoelectric eyes for the wastewater plant that went bad. So Brendan and I took a couple days before we could actually meet up at the same time, that one of us wasn't busy. In the meantime, they had equipment that wasn't working properly, that they couldn't resolve the problem. So it makes it, and again, they still have to follow the policy. They will be held accountable to the same purchasing policy as if they were a hired department head.
We still have to approve it.
Correct. And it'll be one person. John will be the only one with that authority.
and that was gonna be the next question, that's good.
So it's controlled.
It doesn't say that though. That it's only John.
If you would want to, could we approve this and with that amendment, and then we'll just adjust the.
I don't know that we need
Should we
to
do that?
do that. If we're trusting them and John's on vacation or whoever,
then what do
I don't want a
Good point.
situation.
Then their hands are
If
tied.
we're trusting their company to put somebody in charge, they're gonna be held accountable for that. I don't think we need to say what the person's name is or a title or anything. I think that should be their problem.
I think it should.
I don't know if it should name somebody, but I think it should name that there'd be only one person
That would
responsible.
be, I would concur with that.
That way, if they're on vacation, the person assigned to fill their position,
How about if we worded it as
I don't know how they would control one person.
the supervisor or acting supervisor?
That's great. Will.
Is that the
That'd be
language
easy
that
to
they
reword.
use?
Yes. Right? That's the language they use, isn't it,
They
supervisor?
have supervisors.
Supervisor? And that's John's title.
Yes.
yeah, that would work.
That is
So,
sole supervisor or acting supervisor would have that authority.
Can amend my motion to
Thank you.
reflect that.
I would support the amendment to the motion.
Any further discussion? Whenever you're ready, Ange.
Miller?
Yes.
Needham?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Bishop?
Yes.
Dunham?
yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Wales?
Yes.
Carries.
F, consider approval of Iceman special event application.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Motion and support, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, shame on you. G, consider adoption of resolution 2022-014, budget amendment 2, fiscal year ending 2/28/2023. Motion for that, and we'll discuss it.
I'll make the motion.
Motion,
Support.
I'm gonna defer that one to you.
support from one. Go ahead with your.
Excuse me.
Are we doing, one, two?
We're doing 2022-014.
Okay, this is your revenues. And it, if you look at the first row, that's your original budget of what we had. And your second row is the increase that we had. Most of that increase, if you look at the third row, you have an amended budget, and most of that increase came from the cannabis excise tax that we received that was way more than what we expected and got last year.
Is that the one from the state?
Yes.
I like how you put the extra revenue first and set them in a good mood.
Is there any more discussion? Roll call.
Roll call vote, certainly. Needham,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Wales,
Yes.
carries.
H, consider adoption of resolution 2022-015, budget amendment 3, fiscal year ending 2/28/2023. Motion, please.
Support or motion?
Motion, or Needham, support by Bishop. Correct. Go ahead.
This is the one for the DDA. Your first column is the DDA revenues. The second row, of course, the second column is the increase that they had. Most of that came from local grants. And then the second column is their expenses. They had an increase in some areas of expense that had not been accounted for yet.
Any questions? For the treasurer? Roll call when you're ready.
White,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Needham,
Yes.
Wales,
Yes.
carries.
I, consider adoption of resolution 2022-016, budget amendment 4, fiscal year ending 2/28/2023.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
This is your expenses, the change, the budget amendments for our expenses. Again, the second row is the increase in the expenses, and the third row is the amended budget with it. You will notice that most of that is in the professional and contractual services, and that's due to having the IAI.
Taking on that contract?
Yes, in place of some of the DPW workers that we lost.
Which will then
So
be
it's just a
reflected.
kind of
on
a
the other
flux
side,
in,
too.
it's just a flux in the money.
We just won't, you don't see the other side until the end of the year, but we'll save that on the payroll part.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm under budget.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
Our
don't need
payroll
to
was
make
less.
adjustments for that.
So it's just,
Okay. Any questions?
Why did the hospitalization premiums go up in that class? Did we not originally put those there, or did we put them somewhere else?
Yes, that was due to, changes in the, chart of accounts.
The chart of accounts? So
And
where
so, and
those are layered, so it would be zero
they are
somewhere else
accounted
now.
for every year. They're not accounted for in the original budget, but they were accounted for in the budget itself. Because of the payroll, I'm not putting it very well, but it's accounted for in the payroll. And this is the expense that it moved out to. Like with the MERS, we had to get that set up differently so that the employees part of the MERS went through payroll like it's supposed to, because it was never set up that way when I first started for 3 years. And Angie and I had a meeting with BSA and we got that straightened out. So that's why some of these lines, some of them we just had to fix.
You just moved them.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was a great explanation, thank you.
Yeah. Good
So it just went from over here where they were classified because of BSNA, now they had to go into the correct categories on here. Okay, that was very easy to follow. Any more discussion? Okay.
Bishop,
Yes.
Dunham,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Needham,
Yes,
White,
Yes.
Wales,
Yes.
carries.
I consider adoption of resolution we did that one. J, consider adoption of resolution 2022-017, homecoming parade street closure.
So moved.
support.
Motion and support by Needham. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed?
Oh, we already did. And
Let's do next and consider the application for the street to be closed for the car show during Oktoberfest. Do you have a motion for that?
Motion.
Can somebody else make the motion
I can
since his
make the
name is on the
Yeah,
application?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion and second made, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor say yes? Yes. Any opposed? Okay, now we will move on to K, which is where I would ask if we would like to go into closed session.
His contract is already requested, and I would move that we go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session, a second to go into closed session, second,
I'm
All those
sorry,
in-
who was the second?
Miller.
Miller, and I do need to take a roll call
Please
vote
do.
to enter
Yes, you
into
do.
closed session. Dunham? Yes. Larson?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Needham?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Bishop?
Yes.
Wales.
Yes,
Carries. Closed session begins at 7:21 p.m.
appreciate everyone stepping out.
Thank you for coming.
I have to kill the pea.
Thank you, Jacob.
Positive.
I know.